In this video, I'm going to discuss the topic of, is it still worth investing in residential assisted living facilities or in behavioral health facilities in 2023, or if it's worth even starting. So if you're interested, make sure to stick around. What is going on, everyone? I hope you're all doing well. If you're new here, my name is Serg. Welcome to the channel. To all my reoccurring viewers, thank you so much for all the love and support that each and every single one of you have shown me. And if you have not yet, make sure to go check out the God Made podcast on most streaming platforms. Also, feel free to go check out the Legion Assisted Living Academy Facebook group. That is for free, and you could go join that and collaborate with a lot of people that are in there. I believe we're at 3.4 thousand members in there, and so you could go join that. Also, feel free to go check out legionassistedlivingacademy.com. And that is where I teach and sell the course that you can actually start your own residential assisted living from A to Z. And also my mentorship call link is on that site as well. And it's also in the description of this video. So you can book a one-on-one call with myself. And also feel free to go check out valleyalfventures.com. Feel free to check us out on Instagram as well if you're a limited partner or you're an operator who is looking to expand their operations or potentially sell their facility. Feel free to go check us out. And with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the topic of this video. 2023 is off to a very interesting start, and a lot of people are looking at the housing market right now. And given the interest rates that have increased so much the last year and continuing to go up, at the time of this video, the Fed actually dropped the interest rate for mortgage rates by 25 basis points, but they are set to increase continuously throughout the year. So it's becoming a lot harder to actually afford getting into a home right now, and especially if you're looking to get into residential assisted living. And so that is one of the issues right now that a lot of operators are having, especially the ones that are looking to expand on their operations. And because of that, affordability is becoming an issue, right? And I think a lot of families and a lot of people in general see this issue. And so for a lot of operators and a lot of people who are looking to get into this industry, now they have to go and lease a property, which is a great way to actually continue to expand your operations. And this is a pain point that I like to point out to a lot of individuals who look to get into this industry, is that you have to understand what it takes to actually acquire the real estate aspect of this business, and then what it takes to actually start up the operations. And so the real estate aspect of it, that's where, at Valley ALF Ventures, we work with a lot of experienced operators who may or have a home or two that they're already operating out of, and we work with those individuals to help expand their operations. And so understanding what it actually takes to get into this industry from a real estate standpoint, there's a couple different routes. So that's the good thing. So even though it's harder to actually go acquire the real estate yourself and take down that asset to start your operations, there are other opportunities and other ways you could do it. And so don't let the interest rates, don't let the housing market scare you off, but understand that you may have to go another route, such as leasing or doing the lease option. Typically, that is what a lot of operators do with us. So if you're interested in doing that and you're in the Phoenix market, feel free to reach out to us. We'll work with you. Outside of the Phoenix market, we're not expanding just yet, but eventually in the near future, we hope to, and that way we can help more operators get into this. Now, another thing to keep in mind, if this is still something worth doing in 2023, I would say yes. The reason being is it's still like catching traction. It hasn't necessarily gotten to the point where there's a ton of people trying to get into this industry. The barrier of entry is still pretty high enough to where it makes people think twice about getting into it, meaning, it doesn't just cost, $3,000-$4,000 to get into. It does cost a good chunk of money, which I've talked in previous videos, to where people still think about it more than trying to go start like an e-commerce store or trying to do something else that has a lower barrier of entry. And so that's another thing to keep in mind with this industry. It's as things continue to get more regulated, and I'm not saying there's even more regulations coming to this industry, because I feel like at least here in the state of Arizona, the regulations are pretty much tapped out where they're at, and it's becoming this battle really with municipalities and city zoning and et cetera, like things of that sort, where, you know, we're having to go back and forth and try to make sure that we stay on top of that stuff. But for the most part, I feel like we in the state of Arizona have a good handle. Other states like Washington have a good handle on their regulations, on their policies. They're actually a lot more strict than I would say Arizona, and so is Oregon. California is still doing a pretty decent job of regulating and keeping those regulations at bay and not over regulating these facilities. And so with that being said, I don't see future regulation coming into play to where it's ultimately going to affect a lot of homes and even people who are trying to get into this industry. Now, the things, like I said, they've already put enough regulations to where they can keep things for the most part under control, and people aren't opening up things left and right like they were, you know, even 10 years ago. So that's something to keep in mind. And so for anybody that's concerned about really regulations, I would say don't be too caught up on that. I feel like most things that are already in play are set and done. And so one thing to keep in mind though is, like I said, the things that we're having to battle as care homeowners are making sure that there isn't any more like zoning rules that are coming into play. And also there isn't anything to do with fire department trying to pass certain rules and regulations for what we need to install in care homes and what needs to be done. So making sure and keeping our pulse on that as care homeowners and as people. But for the most part, I think we're good to go there, at least in 2023. Again, things can change in 2024, and they may change even this year. But as of right now, I don't see any of those changes coming. Another thing to keep in mind as care homeowners and as people who are looking to invest into this industry is knowing what you're doing, right? There's a lot of people who come into this from out of state. They may not be investing in their own backyard. They see places like Texas, Arizona, Florida, states like that that are known for these types of facilities, and they're trying to invest in these facilities. A lot of them end up not being able to properly succeed. I'll give a quick example of this. So we're always looking to acquire, we're always taking tours, we're always looking at different facilities and working with our operators. And we went and saw 2 properties that were owned by out-of-state investors. And these investors had one of the properties actually vacant for a whole year. They had not been running any type of operations there. The place definitely had deferred maintenance that would need to be done. But you know, you don't want to put yourself in that situation where, you know, these out-of-state investors came in and acquired 2 properties at once. One of them being only licensed for 5 beds, and one being licensed only for 10 beds. And the 5-bed is the one that was vacant. And even though the property was set up properly, they weren't running a business out of it for a whole year. And, you know, the price point that they were wanting for both facilities a year ago, at this point, you know, they're selling it almost, I wouldn't say half, but they've definitely dropped down the price for both of them. And even though they did that, there's so much deferred maintenance on, I would say, both of them, that they just needed so much work that I don't see them, they didn't present very well. And I don't see them being able to offload these things. And they bought it at the height of the market, you know, in 2021. And so for them, that's very unfortunate. The other one that was licensed for 10 beds had, you know, 7 residents, but they were averaging, I think, like $2,600 a resident. So they weren't doing very well from even an operational standpoint. Great areas, but just the properties were so, they needed work, to be honest. And they had so much. So that's just a quick example of out-of-state investors coming in and trying to buy these places, thinking that they can run them and operate them completely hands off. I know of another out-of-state investor and operation person, and they're from Washington or Oregon, I believe. I think it was one of those states, but they're doing a really good job. So it's not like it's not possible, but if you're an out-of-state investor, I would really look twice at doing this and properly vet the operations, vet the employees, vet the business, if that's something that you're investing in, taking over the operations. So just be very aware of that and be willing, you know, and open to coming out a few times a month just to check in on things and make sure things are running properly. But I don't see a lot more out-of-state investors as much as I did before coming in and acquiring these places, and which is a good thing for the people who are in those local areas, that it makes sense to do this because you're not having to deal with as much competition. So that's just something to keep in mind. And with that, I want to just say it is still a really good time to get into the space. It's only starting now to like pick up traction. I would say the silver tsunami is upon us, really. I feel like the people who are of the baby boomer generation, they're here and they're here to stay. And, we have a lot of years still with them. And I think this uptrend is just going to continue to go up. And I think just like anything else, residential assisted living and like everything that within this healthcare space and operations with residential properties, is what, self-storage and even like RV parks and mobile home parks were 5 to 7 years ago. A lot more people are starting to become aware of this business model, which is a great thing because we definitely need more housing for the elderly. There's such a short demand for this service, and people will always need healthcare and they'll always need housing. These are two undeniable things, right? People will always continue to get older and people are always going to need shelter. So I believe in this business model. I believe in even the behavioral model, in the whole sober living model, for all these different services that need to be provided and to help not only the communities, but even the individuals themselves. So I am still very, very heavily going into this space and continuing to acquire more real estate, work with more operators. So that is just my thoughts on what I think about 2023 and if residential assisted living is really worth it. So hopefully this provided you guys some insight, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have not yet, make sure to check out the links down below. Make sure to hit that like button for me. Make sure to subscribe, and I will talk to you all in the next one.